Trauma. Everyone has it. No one talks about it. It seems easier to stay silent, ignore it, or stuff it than it does to honor it, learn from it, and finally heal. Trauma is debilitating, yet so often we suffer in silence. Trauma is not meant to be battled alone, and we are no longer going to suffer in silence. Together, we are creating a safe place to speak, to share our stories, and grow our strength as we heal. Together, we are giving a voice to those who have been silenced, bringing darkness into light, and letting God use our stories. Today, we find ourselves again. We relight our spark and let it light up the world. Stop Sis is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating on issues of trauma and trafficking, as well as the amazing power of the healing journey. Welcome to Stop Sis. Hey, you guys. Big welcome back to Stop Suffering in Silence. My name is Denise Walsh, and we are here with co-host Rachel Timothy. And before we hop into today's, that's what I meant to say, episode, we want to share with you the winners of the episode 25. Thank you for those who shared and followed and did all the things just to help us spread the word about trauma, trafficking, and healing. We so appreciate you commenting and just being a part of this conversation. And so we have two winners, one from Instagram and one from Facebook. Bethany won on Facebook and Olivia won on Instagram. You both are going to win a Stop Sis bundle. So we'll message both of you and get your details so we can send that to you right away. And the cool thing is if you've read either of our books or have any of this stuff already, it's a good time to gift it. So, stocking stuffer for anyone in your family who may.
Oh my goodness. Open blind eyes in a stocking. I can't.
It could be. But that's a book people pass around, Rachel. You know that.
Okay,
so they share and then gift it.
Christmas joy.
Yes, exactly. And then we want to thank those who came to our free webinar. It was so fun. Last week, we did a free webinar, Stop Sis webinar, where we shared a bit from Rachel's newest workbook that she's creating. It's a trauma program. It's called Reflecting Ownership. And we went through chapter 1 and just identified 4 areas of a human soul, right? Our human selves that trauma impacts, and how perpetrators kind of take ownership of those areas. And so those who were on the free webinar got to hear a bit of an insider scoop of her workbook that she's creating that will be hopefully on Amazon in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So stay tuned for that. We'll be sure that you have access to that. We've got 90-day U-turn that's starting, Rachel, but we're not stopping there. We're really wanting to impact all stages of the healing journey. And so the trauma workbook that you're working on is going to help those who are really needing to get to the wound itself. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And what I found is getting that type of help is difficult nowadays. Counseling is so expensive. Even if you can find the time to go, let alone pay the money. And then finding a counselor that you like. This is something that you can do on your own time, at your own pace, but yet with a community that, loves and supports you. So that's kind of the goal behind it, just to meet them where they are.
Yeah, we're going to add a Facebook group community for those who purchase the healing workshop, or the trauma program is what I want to say, the trauma program. And the goal is to add that community, but just be an open door. So we know not everybody's ready to meet weekly with a group and talk out loud and really work through things. So we've got something for everybody, and the trauma program will give you a community if you desire and if you're ready for that. Otherwise, you can listen to videos and go through the workbook on your own. And then the goal will be that in that process, you'll get to know us and then maybe feel ready for 90-day U-turn in the next round.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. I mean, it's all just taking off, and God is definitely at the lead of it. So,
Absolutely. Well, today we want to talk a bit about like this time of year. It's the mid-December. Winter is here, no matter where you live. Oftentimes, this time of year, you have less sun. It's cold. We're staying inside. Activities are shifted and different. And seasonal affective disorder, SAD, is on a rise. Depression is on a rise. And especially with the holidays coming up, it can increase people's ability, like people's feelings of loneliness, would you say? Because they're thinking everyone's getting together. Tell me a bit more about what you see this time of year.
yeah, I see a lot of hopelessness and just people assuming, you're in a really bad spot maybe this Christmas. Maybe this is the first of really hard Christmases, maybe without somebody that you love, or maybe a betrayal or abandonment, or the recovering of trauma, whatever it may be that's making this season hard. Sometimes it's easy to think every Christmas from here on out is going to be hard. Everyone's going to be like this. Every Christmas is going to be like this. And you feel yourself getting into a hopelessness of, I don't want the rest of my life to look like this. And instead of thinking of ways out, unfortunately, it's just all over the news of suicide after suicide right now. And even just within my own little community right here, we've had a couple recently. And I just think as much as possible, we need to help bring hope back to the people who are hurting silently.
How does how do how does one bring hope to another?
I think the more vulnerable you are with how you're hurting, the more available they will feel like you are to share their own hurting. If we normalize that Christmas isn't just a time of joy, it isn't just tidings of good joy, whatever, like there's hurt, there's pieces missing in everybody's Christmas, and there's disappointments. And I think instead of pretending each Christmas, being real. And the reason that like this topic came to my mind today is because, it's funny how God works. He put on my heart an idea of writing something that would be encouraging to people who are hurting at Christmas time. And I spent like 3 or 4 hours on it this morning. Okay. And I got to where I felt like it was good. And I messaged Granny and I read it to her. And she asked me afterwards, she was like, "So how did it feel reading it?" And I said, "Well, it felt okay, I guess." And she said, "Because there was no emotion. Your words had tons of emotion, but you yourself weren't showing any emotion." And it was like this moment of, I'm doing it again. I am taking the words that God is giving me and I am hoping that they touch somebody else, but I'm not letting them reach my own heart. I don't want to feel the hurt again this Christmas. I don't. I want to just feel happiness and push down all those hurt feelings. But then again, I'm not doing what I'm preaching. I'm not being real with myself or with people around me. I'm putting on a facade, and nothing good comes from putting on a facade. Nothing. Even though we think we're making people around us more comfortable, actually, we're maybe making them think they're abnormal for hurting instead of this is actually a normal thing this time of year.
So, one question I have is I feel like part of the disappointment or the discouragement or the feelings like the holidays should be something else than they really are comes from this expectation of what should be.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, like Christmas is one day, or, you know, New Year's is one day, and it's not needing to be a 2 week party, or you know what I mean? And so where does this like what is the expectation that you think people have, and how can we normalize all experiences to be just as good?
Yeah, well, I feel like Christmas magnifies things like you belong to a family that loves you. You are worth all of these presents. You like it magnifies a lot of these things that trauma survivors don't have. They struggle with. Maybe it's worth, maybe it's a place that they feel like they belong, people that they can depend on, and they're struggling with those areas. And it's like Christmas is throwing it in your face and saying, you don't have this, but look at all the people that do. Watch the movies and see how everything ends up happily ever after. And so I just think it is an expectation of we want our life to be like the movies, and it's an either or instead of a both and. You can be happy and not have a life like Hallmark.
Right. Because I'm wondering, who is this elusive comparison that we're wanting to be like? And it probably, because we don't really know what other families are doing. All we know is what's in the commercials, and all we know is what's in the movies. And we don't necessarily really even have an idea of what our neighbor's house is like. And if they're arguing and have addiction, or if they have presence, like, we don't really know. So it's this comparison with probably something that's not necessarily really reasonable. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Not really a real expectation.
Right. And I
And
think that,
so,
go ahead.
and so I feel like healing falls off the bandwagon,
Okay.
like during this time of year. Our progression, even though healing is an up and down thing, it's almost like every Christmas, every winter, healing just goes out to the wayside and people lose hope in it. And I think, for all trauma survivors, anybody who's hurting this time of year, instead of focusing on the season of Christmas and what we wish we had differently, it's keeping focused on the vow of, I'm going to keep on this healing journey. I'm going to keep doing the right things every day and believe that this is making a difference. And in the future, I will see the rewards. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, well, I see if if there's increased stress and increased kind of emotions, increased loneliness, then the healing journey can feel that much harder. It's like when you're in a pit, like
Mm-hmm.
it's more work to see light. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so you're kind of in a darker hole, so healing feels that much harder. But what we know is when you do the next right thing, even if you don't feel an immediate difference, that's the compound effect.
Yep.
And in this season, it can feel like, my guess is, and you let me know if you feel like you're slipping back down into this hole, does it feel like, oh, all is lost and it's just the same, as bad as it was last year, or nothing really changes, or you kind of get into this stinking thinking kind of mode because you're slipping back down
Yes.
into the pit.
Yes. And
Okay.
so then here's my question for you, because I've been there on Christmases, and I'm doing well right now. But I'm also not allowing some of those hurt feelings to even come. Like, I'm scared of letting them come because of that spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess my question is, how do I be real? How do I feel it, but not get lost in it?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the constant question of, how do I not stuff it, but how do I not live in it? Right?
Yes.
Because there is a place where you go, yeah, that sucks. And because we do become what we think about. We want that to get better. And you do have a lot of great things happening. And, there's all this good stuff too.
Yes.
And this sucks.
Yes.
So I think it is a both and situation. I think you acknowledging this, I wish this were different. And I also have all these great things happening.
Yeah.
Now, is there a time limit on that? Does that mean you like cry for an hour and then you're like, okay, better now? Does it
Well,
mean you
right, because
journal
in
every
my head
morning?
I'm
What does
thinking,
that look like?
if like, let's say I'm coming up on my 10th Christmas of just sulking and really upset about things. Okay, that's a bit much. Like, at some point, you've got to take the bull by the horns and say, I will create a life that I enjoy. And it
Yeah,
might not be, I mean, you have the grieving period if it's not what you wish or thought it would be. But at some point, you do get to decide if next Christmas will be better.
absolutely. And again, there's this like elusive expectation of what holiday season really could or should be.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be shifted too.
Yeah.
Like, is really that even what you want?
Right.
What do
Is it
you
put,
really want to do?
exactly. Is it put into you by the media and by,
Right.
like, what do you want this Christmas?
Like, would your ideal Christmas day to be like to go to the movies by yourself? Some people might love that. Who
Right.
the heck knows? Or, there's just so many ways to celebrate this holiday. And I think that we can get pigeonholed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then that can be a lot of times where the frustration and disappointment come from.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we begin to think it's only me. I'm the only one. But in actuality, there's so many other people who need a hand at this time of year as well.
Right. And I think when we say, how do we offer hope, or how does someone, part of it is just being real and raw and vulnerable, but also inviting them into your circle,
Yes.
inviting them over, doing something different, seeing who needs a hangout place. Again, it's just opening your home or your arms or your time
Mm-hmm.
people in your community.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when you're doing that and you're giving of yourself, it's hard to stay depressed.
Yeah. So that brings me to the person who's down. Instead of waiting, right, for somebody to invite them, what could they do to say, either can I support someone this year? Can I invite someone over? Can I create community in some way? Or can I go to a place? Can I go to the church gathering? Can I go to the community center? Can I go somewhere and be proactive in
Mm-hmm.
that? Because we know that whether you're the one in the pit or you're the one out of the pit, giving gets your mind and out of yourself and onto others, and that always lifts your mood.
Yes. And trauma will try to tell you over and over again not to do it. Don't step outside of your house. Don't go to that event. Don't reach out to that person. They're not going to want to be with you. You're not worth it. All of those negative things. But you always feel better when you push those down and go ahead and go for it. And because then you start to create a community.
So then the other thing to remember is that, guys, Christmas really is only one day. New
Yes.
Year's is only one day. And and I say that because this is what we tell people who are on like like a healthy eating plan, and then they like want to binge all December, and you're like, Christmas is only, you get Christmas cookies on Christmas. That's it. You don't eat Christmas for 6 weeks.
Yeah, or they don't want to start till January 2nd.
Right, exactly. We're like, Christmas is only one day. You don't need to eat pie all December. But I say that too with like getting out of our routines, sticking with your normal routine throughout the holidays. And then again, even with the seasonal affective disorder and sunlight and all of that kind of stuff, that's a season too. And so I think, again, when we start to slip back down into this pit, it can feel like it's only me and it's never going to get better. And every holiday season, I feel this way, and it can, you start to spiral and get into that stinking thinking, when in reality, it's a season. And if you look back at maybe how you were 2, 3, 4 seasons ago, you'll see just how far you've come. You'll be able to remember what spring feels like. You'll be able to start taking a look at all of the ways that you've already made progress. And any slip down doesn't mean you're slipping. It's
Right.
just a part of it's part of a life, and it's okay. And you can acknowledge it, and you can honor it, and you can say, now what?
Yeah. I think one thing I recognized when I was in that pit at the heaviest, I finally recognized this is not a wasted season. This is not just a season I'm trying to get through to get to the next one. There is so much to learn in this season. And that is where I have gained my most strength and knowledge and understanding when it comes to trauma and who I am and who God is. That don't waste this time, because it is truly an miraculous time where God wants to put so much knowledge and love and goodness on you, even though maybe you feel alone or you feel lost or you feel like you don't belong. Use this as a time to start researching books and studying. Listen to podcasts. I mean, fill yourself up during this time, this season where it feels extra hard, because this isn't just a time to brush off and get through. It's a time to renew yourself, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great. It's like when you feel yourself slipping into the pit, or you feel like you're in that pit, using that to grow in a sense. Because I know what it's like to feel like, oh, just make me feel better.
But when you think of the mountains and you think of the valleys, where's all the trees? Down in the valleys where there's rivers, and that's where the growth takes place. So, yeah.
So know that it's that even the hard stuff, it's actually a universal law, ebbs and flows, a law of rhythm. Like, it will end. The hard will end. It's a universal law. It will not stay sucky forever. And there's a lot to learn, even in the hard.
And so as I'm like processing this myself, it's like, okay, I shouldn't be scared to let myself go there, because first of all, I know I've gotten out of it before, and I won't allow myself to get stuck there. But second, what will I learn? What will I grow from if I actually allow the real feelings to come? And then maybe it'll be one of those where I can put it aside and just simply enjoy Christmas the way that it is now.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like if you if you allow kind of that maybe can of worms essentially to open, that you won't be able to close it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I'm afraid that it will not just affect my Christmas, but affect the Christmas of those around me. That it will just, I mean, you expect it to just be catastrophic, because that's what it feels like in your gut.
Okay. So opening that can of worms could send you deeper into the spiral.
Yes.
Okay. Have you opened that can of worms other times in your life where you acknowledged the pain you were feeling?
Yes.
And what did you do to get out of it?
It's kind of like you said, it was the ebb and flow. Like it, I think nowadays it wouldn't take me as long to get out of it as it used to. It used to be just where I lived, was in that valley. It's just once you've seen the light, you don't want to go back. It sucks. But it's being real. It's being normal. And I cannot tell you how many times I told Granny in the last 8 years, I just want to be normal. Well, here I am. Normal's not what I thought it would be.
Yeah, normal has ups and downs too.
Yes.
And normal gets to reevaluate expectations. Normal gets to say that stinks, and
yeah,
I wish things were different. And look at what I have. I think that's really a battle we all get to work through, is when you think of people having quarter life crisis or midlife crisis or going through divorce, and now they're this age and I thought life would be different. I mean, it's just, I think we all have seasons in our life where we say, this isn't what I expected. And I can grieve the life I thought I was going to have, and I can be open and warm and grateful for the life I do have.
Yep. And then start making steps towards the life you want to have.
Yeah. Because we're not done yet.
We're not done. This isn't just oh man, okay, I'll just suck it up and be content with what I have. Yeah. I mean, maybe this season you don't have a huge community around you. You got an entire year to start making some friends, to get out in the community, get involved in your church, however it may look for you. And next Christmas could look completely different.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
I think I mean, we could do a whole podcast on reflecting and redreaming. I mean, these are things I take my clients through all of the time, because this is a great year to say or great time of year to say, what did I accomplish? Like, we don't often recognize how far we've really come, because we see where we want to go, or we're still feeling nervous or whatever in the journey. So we often don't give ourselves the props we deserve, but really take a look back over this last year, over these last 3 years, right? And say, and write it down. What did you accomplish? What changes did you make? What communities did you get a part of? What hobbies did you try to learn? Like, what did you guys do that you can say, I have come a long way, or I've made a step? All of that is better than nothing.
Yes.
And then we get to say, all right, well, what intentions do I have for this next year? What do I really want? And go through some of those exercises to gain some clarity. And then at the end of the day, what you want, those things that bring you joy, the desires of your heart, get to be put on a calendar. And over the next year, you get to work on creating that. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to have no downs.
Right.
And you may still have seasons of loneliness, and you may still have bouts of frustration or sadness or disappointment, but you now know that you can open that can of worms, allow yourself to feel it, journal about it, write a poem, but then also ask yourself, now what?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the hope is, and that's where we can spread that hope to others too. So,
do you think the hopelessness is part of the grief? Is it like grief that life isn't where we thought it would be?
yeah, but then I think it's the grief of, or the hopelessness of, it's never going to change either.
Okay.
We can't even imagine finally feeling happy or whatever. And I think one of the toughest things, at least for me, wrapping my head around some of these suicides that I've seen, is on the outside, majority of the people look so happy. You think of Robin Williams. His whole career was based on making people laugh and joy and things like that. So it's just a reminder too, to check in with people, make sure they know it's okay. They can be real and vulnerable. They're not going to scare you off.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everybody needs a group that they stay connected with, whether it's a friend group, a mom group, a therapy group, a church group, a Bible study. All of those small type groups really create connection that you just can't get, at the grocery store.
Right. And then, I was listening to a podcast today, and the lady was talking about how, when you hear of a suicide, don't say, well, they had a family. They had all this, that, and it's just so selfish. I can't believe, all those types of comments when, at the end of the day, they felt isolated and something wasn't right in their mind. Something was physically even wrong, like that's not a normal response. And so the judgment that comes sometimes is not accurate. I don't know.
No, it's not fair, because clearly somebody who's doing well and is healthy, mind, body, soul, spirit, wouldn't have taken to those measures.
Yeah.
So something is wrong, and you just really don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Right. And I remember, I was suicidal at one point in my life, and I remember driving down the road and seriously contemplating hitting the next telephone pole. It seemed like this, my thought process was, everybody else would be better off if I was gone. And the only thing that stopped me was thinking that somebody's going to have to explain to my kids what happened to their mom. And I wasn't okay with that. And so I kept fighting. And I remember my counselor telling me, give it 5 minutes. Just wait 5 minutes, because usually your rational brain will pop in. So And oftentimes they'll ask, do you have a plan? Do you like what, all those sorts of things. But as much as possible, be real and honest with those who are supporting you, because it would be awful to lose you.
I love that. Wait 5 minutes. Just give yourself a break, because those thoughts aren't rational. They're emotional. And my
Their
guess is,
trauma response, even.
yeah. And if you really thought about it, wrote about it, really realized what you were doing, that's not what you would want either.
Right.
One question, this is going to sound gruesome, but one question we would ask people is, what if it doesn't work and you're just injured and disabled? They're like, well, that's not the point. And you're like, exactly. Most of the time people would try, but it doesn't work and they end up just getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like on recovery for months. And so,
right.
Needless to say, not a good choice.
No. And I've heard of many survivors who try and then a second later change their mind. And, then you're just going through a mess with the hospital. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so keeping hope alive throughout the holidays, even if there's comparison happening, there's unmet expectations, there's things that are disappointing, you're experiencing grief, maybe you're backsliding and you've been doing well, but like this brings up all these old memories or new memories or whatever. Remembering that you have come, like you haven't lost the ground you've gained. You haven't. Even if you're feeling like you're backsliding a bit, you will. There is going to be another season, right? This is just a few weeks. This is just a day. There's another season. You will come back out on the other side. And the more work you do in the valley, the better that other side will be.
Oh, absolutely. What's your thoughts on, as people on the outside looking in on somebody who's battling trauma, battling depression, just being really down? Oftentimes it seems like those people, they think, if I can just make you laugh, if I can just, make life super funny and fun, then that'll fix everything and you won't be down anymore. When, yes, like laughter's great, but you need real normal life, like of, hey, I get it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's both and, isn't it? Because it's like you want someone to sit with you and give you a hug and just be like,
this sucks. Yeah.
And let's go watch a movie and distract ourselves. Like both,
Yeah. I'll never forget this. I mean, I was in junior high when this story took place, but my piano teacher had a miscarriage. And I remember her telling me that so many people said, oh, the baby's in heaven. Everything's good. Like, don't worry, you'll be fine. You'll have another one, all these positive things. But the person that said, you know what, this sucks, and I am so sorry, that's the person where she could finally break down, feel it, and then start healing from it.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes people just need a big hug.
Yeah.
I'd say often, if you don't know what to say, just give someone a big hug.
Exactly.
They don't necessarily need our words.
In fact, most of the time they probably don't.
Probably don't want them. As wise as we think we are.
Yes. We've got all the answers.
What I think I've shared the story before, but in high school there was a girl who lost a family member, and I remember just going up to her and giving her a hug. And I remember asking, like, should I go up to her? Like, I don't want her to think we were gossiping about her, but like, I know she just lost a family member. But so should I, like, she didn't tell me, like, is it okay if anyway, somebody said to me, and it was super wise. They said, she's thinking about it all day. Absolutely. Go up and give her a hug. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to think just go show her some support right now. And so I did. I didn't say anything. I just said, I'm so sorry. And no other words were needed.
Yeah. And I have a feeling she never forgot that.
So if you are a bit more down this time of year, know that you are not alone.
Yes.
It is certainly something that happens in the holiday season, whether it's the craziness of the holidays and the expectations that aren't getting met, or the sun that doesn't seem to come out in Michigan for 9 months. You're not alone. And so I think all of us get to be more intentional with what type of life we want to create, and create those spaces for community for ourselves, but then also to invite people into our community, and open our doors in our home and our time.
Yeah. And this season won't last forever, but also don't waste it.
Amen. All right. I'm going to end with a quick I declare. I think, oh no, where'd it go? I might not.
You got it memorized, don't you?
What's that?
You
Oh,
have it memorized.
I know day 28 is my favorite, so I always look that one up.
There you go.
But we are, this is day 25. I guess this will be, this is a good one. Okay. I declare I will not just survive, I will thrive. I will prosper despite every difficulty that may come my way. I know every setback is a setup for a comeback. I'm not stagnant. I do not give up on my dreams, and I do not settle where I am. I know one touch of God's favor can change everything. I'm ready for a year of blessings and a year of thriving. This is my declaration, and this is my declaration for you. Have an awesome day, you guys, and we'll see you.
And Merry Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Is this coming out? Yeah. Merry Christmas, you guys. Have a very Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this powerful episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. If you are interested in booking Rachel to speak at your school, your church, or on your podcast, then please email openblindeyes@protonmail.com. If you are interested in sponsoring a survivor on their healing journey and would like to donate to Stop Sis, then please check out the link in the description box or show notes below, or you can email stopsis@protonmail.com. And finally, if you are currently suffering in silence, or you know somebody who is, whether they're dealing with a current trauma or one from the past, then we will always recommend that you reach out to your local resources and find a counselor that you can trust, because nobody is meant to suffer alone. Have an amazing week, and thank you for being here.